Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Hartsville-Trousdale County Water Sewer Utility Board meeting this evening. We have one more that's going to be joining us soon. I'd like to open the meeting and we begin with an invocation, please, led by Mr. Dwight Joel, please. Oh. Please stand to the flag. Next order of business is our roll call, and we have, looks like absolutely every staffer just walked in, so everyone's present. So we have a quorum, it's confirmed. The next order on our agenda is number 5 for the approval of the April meeting minutes. And Mary Grace, that did not change from what we sent out last night. Is that correct? Okay, so that's confirmed. Those are the same ones. This is in the same format and formula, wording and everything that you acquired last night in the email.
Heather, I think we're going to talk about budget tonight, but I just wanted to note that that motion I made regarding the salaries needs to be adjusted somewhat one way or another.
Thank you. And to approve the budget presented to the exception of the employees.
It was the wording I used about 5% or matching the county, whichever is greater. If the county were to come back with a 15% raise, I don't think our budget could accept that. So I just wanted to amend that motion one way or another. You know, we can't match the county necessarily as high as they may go. So
Okay,
we can do that whenever, but
the motion as it stood is the same and in the wording
Correct,
of the minutes, it'll
correct.
be remain the same. We'll just
Correct.
need to address that through our agenda when we get to that topic.
correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
But first by Stephen Chambers, Mayor,
Second,
second by Todd Weber. Thank you. All in favor? Yes, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The approval, the next order is our April 2022 financial reports. I'm going to ask Mr. Tommy if you, Tommy McFarland, if you will lead us in this past month's.
Yeah, we had your summary of the budget there. The first page is, we're 8.42% ahead of our budgeted income. So we're still ahead there. And other than that, if y'all had any questions, I don't have any other thing unless you have some questions. I will note, I think Mary Dale pointed out, there might be a typo on the month, but it's the right data. There's a typo maybe on the wrong month, but it is the right data on the income statement.
So the month is incorrect, but the dates are correct. It says March and it should say April, but it says 4/1 through 4/30.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just wasn't called. It should have been changed to April.
Do I hear any questions or anything about the budget? And what's the desire of this body? We have any?
Motion to approve the financial report is presented.
I have a motion to approve the financial reports from White Jewel. Do we have a second?
second.
Second by White. Any question? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next order of business is the water loss report.
Yeah, this month it showed a 28% loss, which is Dwight was at. He might want to ask that question again. But we need a couple, maybe another month or two to see if that valve we fixed is what caused, that was the cause of this. Get another month of data, we might have a little better idea. But maybe that was some of it, so. And that we continue, we've been fixing some mostly service leaks. We did fix a fairly decent 4-inch line leak out on Burnley Road that we keep finding them and fixing them. And
What was the road name again, please?
pardon, huh?
The road name again, please?
Burnley Road, we had about a 4-inch main leak here in the middle of the road or on the edge of the road, had to cut the road to fix it. And that's on the system where we don't have a meter that monitors that yet. We don't have that section done where we can monitor it. We just have the pump system on it. We kind of know when the pump's running more often. That's how we know it's doing it, and the tank filling up slow. That's how we know.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? We'll proceed with our engineering report from Mr. Evan White with Mid-10 Engineering.
Good evening. I give y'all a packet out to go over some projects. The garage is, the UD building garage is still underway. Everything's going good there. That's one project. The other project is SRF, and y'all probably getting tired of hearing of me about the SRF project. It seems to take forever to get that one off the ground, but they finally sent us the loan documents last week, maybe, to the mayor this week or last week, one. And when we started this project, we initially asked for 1.75 million to do the project. This was in 2019, I think. Me and Tommy looked it up. That's when we started this.
Are you talking about what you emailed out or what you?
You should have a setup there with you.
So do you have an extra one for Ms. Stafford?
I did.
That you
I
got?
give it to all
Okay.
board members.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. So we started at 1.75 million is what we requested in 19, the very beginning of 19. As you can be well aware, we're in 2022 and construction prices are not what they was when we estimated the project. When they started asking for more information, probably 6 months ago, I'm going to say, or more, they asked us to give them a revised budget. In doing that, we give them a revised budget of 2.25 million. Well, when they sent out the loan agreement forms, they kept the original 1.75 million dollars with a anticipated interest rate of 2.26 for 20 years. So I had Tommy get a hold of them and request, because it has to come from y'all. It has to come from the borrower, not from the engineer, about the possibility of getting the 2.25. And they come back and responded and said, yes, we'll give you the 2.25 million, but we're gonna have to redo financials. And I wanted y'all to see what the difference is gonna be, but you're gonna be looking at probably a couple of months for them to redo the financials and get you the loan agreement papers again. So again, more wasted time, but you're going to get $500,000 more, and it's gonna cost you about $122,000 roughly in 20 years on interest. So you can either come up with whatever the project's going to be, and that's something else me and Tommy's talked about. The way things are going, 2.25, we feel like would take care of it, but we don't know where it's going to be when it actually bids and goes, and gets built. So that's still a possibility. There is contingencies built in that project, but I'm bringing it before y'all to know if you want to go ahead and ask for the 2.25, postpone it a little bit longer, and you can see what it's going to be. The only thing they're going to do is review your financial records and see if you can pay for that extra amount. If you can't, they're going to tell you to increase your rates. They will give you amount they got to go to do the project, or you can always go back to your 1.75. So But to get $500,000 at that interest rate at this day and time is about as good as you're going to get. So it just depends on if you want to take that out of your cash flow in the bank or if you want to ask for more loan. This is no grant. This is 100% loan. So that's what those sheets are for. And I'm going to go on to the rest of the sheets I got so I can get done with my part here. The first sheet you come to, the graphs, is going to be a graph with a dark blue and a light blue, and y'all seen that the other night at our work session. If you come over here about April of 2020, you can see the data starts getting skewed, and the dark blue is a lot taller or a lot more above the light blue than how it was trending before. That's the anomaly we was talking about. And as you can tell, the plant can only treat 2 million gallons at the most. It can only pass that much water through it. And you can tell that there's a few times that, according to this data, it went past that. So that's a red flag to us that something isn't right. So if you go to the next sheet, you're going to see it'll be a blue line and a red line. And that's water treated versus water pumped for the data from 17 to 22. And as you can tell, you can see the gap between the two lines at that same time period. That's telling you that you're treating more water. You're treating roughly, there's a point here, you treated about 52 million gallons a month, but you only pumped out about 34. And that's the largest gap you see there. So, and that's where we're saying there's something, we're basing this on what you treated, if you remember our projections. So we feel like the water treated number is not accurate. And we're going to wait on this check valve that's been replaced and get more data to see what that does. But in the meantime, if you come over here to the very last graph I give you, and I know it's a lot on this graph, engineers like data, so bear with us. The treated, the light brown is treated, and that's basically what you've seen in a line curve, but this is a bar graph. But all these black lines that you see that's linearly interpolated, if you can tell, there's 1, 2, 3 of them that's parallel with one another. And then all of a sudden you got this one that's at a steeper gradient than the other ones. And that is where we're saying, that was a red flag to us, saying that the treated water, that's what it's trending, while the other ones are trending exactly the same. So we feel like the treated water is not being recorded accurately for some reason, whether it's the meter itself or the check valve, but we don't feel like we should use that data in y'all's master plan to plan for the expansion. Now, as we talked about the other night, we can't really go back and just use that data and put a correction factor on it and then try to project out. So what I did today is I went back, I took that data plumb out, and I projected what it would be. And you're going to fall somewhere between 2027 and 2033 that you would still need, you would be at 80% of your plant. So it buys you some more time to get some more data, but still in 20 years, you're going to have to come up with more capacity at your water plant. So it's not immediate as TDEC thinks it is, but it is on the horizon according to the data. And again, we're going to monitor this for about 6 months, keep running the data and see if the problem is fixed with the inaccuracies and make sure it's trending the way we think it is. And I'll answer any questions on anything else y'all got. We will need, I guess, at some point, probably a motion to do something with this loan if you want to keep it the same or increase it with SRF.
Just a quick, just to make sure I'm clear, the net difference per month payment is $1,100-ish.
It's $11,000.
The difference between the two
Yes,
options. The
about
net
$2,000.
difference, about 2,000,
Yeah.
1,500. Okay.
Yes, that is correct. So not a huge significance there, but still, you've already, if you take, basically you got to take your profit that you've done made, divide it by 12 and see roughly it works out, but they're going to do more number crunching than that. So, but I don't feel like they're going to come back with that, but it's just going to be a further delay to get the money. But I also hate to see y'all have to, come up with whatever the overage is versus 1.75, since this has took so long for the state to get the money to y'all.
Heather? My question on this, obviously the money that we have sitting in the bank is not paying us 2.26%. So certainly if we could use our money toward this, it's almost like we're gaining that much on our money that we have, unless we're going to need those funds for something else. And what we have in surplus, it seems like that certainly should be come into the consideration. I think that whatever we're going to gain another 6 months on the cost of things is going to lose whatever we'd gained by trying to kick it down the road that far. I would be comfortable with either scenario, but I think it would be prudent to strongly look at this 1750 and trying to take the difference, whatever it may be, out of our funds. I think we'd be money ahead in the long run by doing that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Unless we need it for something else or it's already obligated for something else. I know we're required to have a certain amount of fund balance. I don't want to dip below that and get us in trouble with the comptroller's office, but I'm just looking at the interest rates of what we're being paid and what it's going to cost us to turn right around and borrow money that we've got in the bank.
Mr. White, go ahead.
Not to be dumb, but what's this for?
What's this for?
It's for the pre-stressed water tank going out on Puryear's Bend. That's going to take care of your other 2 to 3 tanks.
Well, we've talked about it for so long, I forgot what it was.
I'm fully aware. Another thing on the data I wanted to point out, and we'll look at this data too, but I noticed on the water loss handout that Tommy gave y'all for this month, it looks to me like his electricity is about half of what it's been running. So that could be some of your pumping that's going on, which is calculating our water flow at the water plant. So some of these things, some of the data is looking trending better, I guess you could say. So we'll check all this, but that was something that stuck out to me when I looked at this report on your water treatment.
Ms. Stafford, go ahead.
I do have a question for Evan. I know we're talking about a new water tower in the Cures Bend area, but I have some citizens in the community that are asking questions about a new water treatment plant. And maybe this question is for Tommy. Some of the residents on Morrison Street have complaints with low water pressure and want to know when that can be addressed. So Tommy, that question's for you, and then Evan about the water treatment plant.
Yes, I believe I've talked to some folks up there about that. They're right there at the base of the tank of Morrison Tank. And they're on the downstream side, which on the upstream side, there's a pressure pump that pumps up the hill and keeps all those people pressurized. And they're just on the opposite side of where that pump is. They're right close to the tank. That's why their pressure, that's the lowest your pressure is ever going to be near a tank. And they could install their own little system to pump the pressure up in the house. But the thing about the tank project we're about to do, it's going to add more pressure back to the system. So that problem's going away. And I think I shared that with the people that we talked to up there. When it gets built, the elevation of that tank's going to be different than the one that they're on right now. And it'll probably add about 40 more pounds of pressure, which that'll greatly increase her pressure, the lady that I talked to up there at her home. But it's not going to happen until that tank's in place. So that's the way down. It's hopefully another closer than it ever was, but that will fix that. I think I'd shared with them that they could you install a little bladder tank and pressurize their home until that took place, you know. I don't know that we have if it's on us to fix, if that's, all we're required is have like 20 pounds of pressure at a meter. And I think she's got maybe around 30 to 25, 30 pounds at her meter. The one that I talked to, they may be more people experiencing that, but I've only had one conversation.
So we're required for 20 and they are above that. Most of them are above that, as far as you know.
Yes, because they're downstream of the tank. So the tanks, I believe, I forget how tall it is, but probably about 30 feet or so, 35. But I know right out of the front of the tank, its pressure is probably around 20 to 15 pounds right at the base of the tank, right in front of it. And she's a little bit downhill, which her pressure is going to climb because she's down the elevation of it. And that's kind of conversations that I've had with some of the homeowners up there, at least one or maybe two. But this tank will add more pressure back to the system and more flow. It'll be helping with that too.
Thank you.
Mr. Jewell, I'm sorry, Ms. Stafford.
I was telling him, thank you.
Mr. Jewell, do you still have anything?
I was going to say that, you know, this is an issue that we've dealt with a lot of times. Anytime people have a change overall in what they have had as far as their pressure, they're going to notice it. If they hadn't had more and had what they have now, they'd probably be happy with what they have now. We have issues that some think they've got too much and it's blowing up their lines. So it is this happy median that he has to try to deal with across the system. And it's a bit of a balancing act, but I know myself personally, I have less pressure than I had 20 years ago when I moved there because there's more demand on that line. You know, I put a gauge on it then, I had 120 pounds. You know, I do good now to hit 55 or 60 and I can tell when the pumps kick on, but I'm happy to have water. But it is a noticeable difference. So it's just a balancing act that we have to deal with.
And I'm sure 20 pounds of pressure is being the legal rate. You're saying that area does have 30 pounds of pressure. And I know some of the new toilets that you purchase require 30 to 60 pounds of pressure. If they're buying equipment like that, that might be a situation that they're dealing with that they're not even aware of as well. So we might reach back out to this individual and see if she's installed any new equipment or anything in the house for sure. And then also just make sure, if you will, check with Tommy and see if it's the same individual or if this is a new case that might be presented to you that he can get the crew to go look at for sure.
And that we've had complaints about on the opposite side of that. I think the mayor might have had a few people out in Cato asking him about it. That in that situation, there's a pumps to a tank, and on the downstream side of that tank or the suction side of that tank, there's like 135 pounds. But when you add the pump to it on the opposite side, it builds it up to 160 to 70. So it increases the pressure, but it has to get it to that tank at Cato. And that's unfortunately what we get into with having to get people water, is having to have these situations where we're getting them the water the best way we can with the system that we have. And the only thing they can do in that situation where the pressure is high is add a regulator to regulate it down. And unfortunately, the regulators they make today are not as efficient as the regulators they made 20 years ago. They're really cheap and they tear up quicker. And we run into that all the time. Folks put a brand new one in 6 months, they're replacing it. It's just, they're just not made like they used to make them. And we run into that a lot with customer complaints and stuff.
Mr. Evans.
I'm sorry.
I'm-
Many times it's always stated as a pressure issue and it's a flow issue. It's a volume issue. If their pipes are restricted, if they're rusted up or things of that nature, it's taking them a long time to fill up a sink or fill up a bathtub or something like that. They may have adequate water pressure, but they may not be getting adequate flow. So there again, you can put a pressure gauge on it and it show, 40, 50 pounds of pressure, but take an hour to fill up a bathtub because there's just a pinhole of water trying to come through. So all of those things are, like we said, play into it, and it is a bit of a balancing act to know which is to blame.
Thank you all. Thanks, Ms. Stafford. Thank you, Ms. Stafford, for bringing that. Mr. Evans, do you have any input on that?
He's absolutely correct. The tank is gonna be as tall as Hall Town. We're trying to equalize y'all's tanks. That way you get equal pressure throughout your system, except for all the higher elevation places in the county. You can't really help that. So town was gonna see, I think, 40 to 50 pound increase from what they are seeing right now. Just because it's the low point of y'all's system. So that's gonna fix it if we can ever get it off the ground and built, so.
And that's part of what we're working for with this with the 2.25 that you brought before us. I do need to bring it to everyone's attention, our capital improvement. We've all received the priority list. We had about 10 that we were gonna work towards first, just as soon as we could. And then we've also got the 4 large developments that are coming before the community that might impact our budget as well in the future. So I think that you all need to keep those in mind, that we will be having some extra expenditures coming down the pipeline that we do not necessarily have everything lined up for yet, because we haven't received everything from the developers and things. Anything on that, Tommy?
I know that I think I've counted about 200 individual meters will be needed for what's on the books. If they all go through, if they all come to fruition. I got one, we got one that probably will start soon. The one on Highway 25 will probably be starting because they're waiting on TDEC approval. I sent them some more information yesterday, and so that probably is going to start pretty soon. And when they get that approval, and that's the 48 home one right there. We got several around, and I think they had some more come in this last month here, there's some more come in. I don't know if they got all their planning yet started, but we may learn of more coming down the pike here.
We do have quite a bit of money in some CDs though, right?
Yes, sir.
And what are they paying?
What are they paying for those CDs? I don't have that in front of me. I apologize.
I'm thinking they're in the 1%-ish range, aren't they? But y'all do have the money. Y'all have the cash flow to do this. It's just, do you want to ask for it now before all the paperwork gets done, or ask for forgiveness if it goes over and see if they'll still give you extra money in the end, towards the end of the project. So I'm not saying this is your only opportunity to get it from them, but they was nice enough to say, send us some documentation, we would do it. But I'm sure they're getting this on a regular basis anymore with the projects that's on their books.
Did you have something, Mr. McFarland?
Yeah, I agree with that. We have the flow, cash flow to do it. So to put that extra money with the project.
And I understand that we have that, but we haven't confirmed that that's what's wrong with the treatment center or anything else is locked in. So I just want to make sure that I brought all the capital improvements to the board's attention so you don't forget about that. This isn't the only project on our books. So.
Yeah, I'm personally a little bit more inclined to take the bigger loan. It's spread out over 20 years. It gives us a little more flexibility to play with whatever financing down the road that we need to. 500 grand difference, that's about 10-15% of our reserve we've got in the bank. Not to mention some of them are maturing in 23. I don't recall all some of the some of the cash we've got held back is also kind of locked up. I don't know how much free cash we've got right now. And actually looking at this, there's a note for 2.1%, 2.7% on the CDs. Does that sound, is that actually an accurate? And that's an accurate rate for what we're getting. So we're actually, at least on the CDs, which is about half of our reserve, it's getting about the same as the interest rate on the loans. So.
Yeah, I mean, the way I approach it is it's costing you $122,000 in 20 years to get $500,000. So
Yeah,
it's,
$1,500 a month.
yeah, it's really
20
not
years.
that much, you know, if you're, and most people would take it so they don't have to get in their cash flow. So.
And like Heather said, we've got a lot of stuff out there. I feel like it might be a good idea to kind of keep our powder dry where we have the opportunity to do it. And, but what Dwight said is a very, very good point about checking the interest rates and making a smart decision there too.
And another thing is you can always pay the loans off. You can always pay these off if you so choose early. And then it don't cost you, you know, that extra interest.
I agree with everything everybody's saying, but I know everything looks real rosy right now, but being in trucking, I'm fortunate. I get to see the good times coming before everybody else really does. And I get to see the bad times coming. And I'm telling you, bad times are coming. The party's over. I mean, this building's gonna dry up, whether anybody wants to believe it or not. There's gonna be a whole bunch of people that don't have a chair to sit in when the music stops. Somebody's gonna be left holding the bag. I can see the wisdom of hanging on to our cash flow, but I can also see the wisdom of saving a little money on interest, even if it is stretched over 20 years. Payments add up when you start lumping them together. And I would almost rather pay a little cash on this one and maybe save that bullet for another time when we might need to borrow money for something else. But I'm on board with whatever the board wants to do.
And we are already requested the 1.7, correct? So it's not like we're asking to pull the 2.25 out of our budget as this is just a difference.
Yeah, the 175, the mayor literally has the paperwork ready to sign. And when they sent it to him, I told Tommy to tell him to hold off because of the revised budget we sent them months ago that they didn't include. So it's not going to come in at 1.75. I can almost stand here and assure you that, but I also can't tell you if it's going to come in at 2.25, but it should be, we should be very close based on the estimates we're seeing at this point in time. Concrete's getting really hard to get, and that's what kind of tank it is. So that's our only concern really. So.
Tommy, do we know offhand? I don't recall what our cash reserve requirement is.
I think I was asking Mary Dale that. I think we have to pay $180,000 a year in the two notes that we have in a year's time. That's how much money we ought to have. We ought to keep that always, or at least twice that. That way, if we ever have a bad year, we have it backed up, pay it again. And I think if it's rural development money, they kind of require you to have it backed up and held. So I think one of them for sure was rural development. They most be. So that's what we require to pay a year is $180,000. That's $15,000 a month, $180,000 a year. That's our notes right now.
To Evan's point, if we start this project with only 1.75 loan, and then it actually ends up costing 2.5 or 3.5, but we've still only got 1.75 in a loan, and we're looking at laying out not just 500,000, we're laying out 8, 7, 8, 9 million. Who knows where it could go, just due to the unknown construction costs. Then we're out more cash.
Yes, or you just cancel the project or put it on hold, or I mean, there comes a stopping point. I mean, there really does. So you've got that option too. Let's remember depreciation though. Tommy can fill you in on all that. So just when you borrow that $500,000, you gotta cover that $500,000 too. So, it don't matter if you do it cash flow wise or if you do it loan wise, it's still gotta be covered in the books.
I'll make a motion and it won't hurt my feelings if everybody says no. Motion to move forward with the SRF loan for 2.25 at 2.26%.
We have a motion on the floor, Mr. Todd Weber, for the SRF loan at 2.25 at 2.26%. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second by Mr. Mark White. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
No.
Let's roll call that, please. Yes.
No.
Yes.
We have a vote of 4-2. Yes.
I just got a question for Evan. Is that documentation I've already been sent? Does that already got the 2 point, whatever it is, the increase? I guess I'm just asking, do I need to get any kind of other paperwork before we sign that?
You're not gonna sign that paperwork now. We're gonna send back and say, we're gotta give them some documentation and tell them, yes, go for the 2.25, and they're gonna redo that paperwork, and you're gonna get a new set of paperwork to sign. So that's what I was trying to, that's what we needed from the board here, so we knew whether you need to sign and get it back to them or wait. So they're gonna do a financial review. We'll get the details of that. We'll pass it on to y'all. At that point, you can make a decision too. I mean, you can just make a decision if they find something that says you gotta do something different, or you get to 2.25. So you'll get another vote on this before the mayor actually signs the paperwork. So this just tells us how to proceed with them.
What was the time? What did you think it would take to get this back through? Did you say 6 months?
Yeah, that's probably about right, but they say a couple of months because they've already got the numbers. They basically got to go in there and change them. So all they're changing is 175 and putting, or 1.75 and putting 2.2 million and looking at your rates and things. So it from a CPA standpoint, it ought to be pretty quick, but it's the state, so I'll leave it at that.
That majority was 4-2. So it approves. Thank you. Motion's carried. Mr. Evans, you next.
Anything else?
Did we ever do the core drilling and everything on the parking lot and talk to the road department, and how's that looking?
We're working on trying to get them to show up and do that. Their coring is behind the people that do it. It's really behind. Test pits right now is about all you can get out of a geotechnical bunch. So I'm on the schedule to get it. And we also got another project going on with the county government on a tank site, and we did get that took care of and got a report on it. But
What's the ETA on the shop in general at this point? What's the finish date on that looking like?
I can get with Steve and give y'all an email with an update. I hate to say right now. He's like in drywall, the plumbing and electricals in, almost all HVAC. So drywall and finishes and cabinets. And so it's coming along, but I don't want to speak out of term.
Well, I just, they expect the big doors to come in this week delivered. And I'm sure they'll start putting those in. I think, they only need a mechanical inspection by our Sam. And that, he's done all the other inspections but that one, and that's all they're lacking, so. I think he's on vacation this week, or he probably could have done it this week, but he'll be back, and that'll be done probably next week. And he's moving ahead on getting whatever cabinets, getting all that stuff figured out, and all the inner type stuff, getting it figured out. It's about ready to drywall on the rooms, and as soon as they're doing electrical right now, they're they're running it in the ceilings and the high ceilings in the back. They're getting all them lights set and all that. They're pretty moving pretty good, I think. And then the paving and the groundwork outside is still got to be done.
Thank you. Is there anything else from Mr. White? Appreciate your report.
Thank y'all.
Next order of business is our general manager's report. Mr. Tommy McFarland, I'll let you take that.
Well, just all we had on this tonight was the county requested that we take our budget back and revise it and look at it. And I think mainly some of the things, and y'all might, if I'm wrong about it, I think the bonuses was one of the issues they had, and one more thing, I think the raises that y'all set last time, which y'all know we met before they did, and y'all set them at a certain rate, and they had a side on something different or lower, and was in conflict with what they were wanting to do on the raises. But as of last night, and the Mayor can correct me, I don't believe nothing was set last night either to have any guidance. But that's, that's where we are.
The feeling I get though is the bigger sticking point is bonuses. Would that be a fair assumption, Dwight?
I think that has been an issue that hasn't been resolved over the last couple of years that keeps coming up. I think that's the bigger issue. As far as the raises, we really don't know where we're going to wind up with that till we kind of get everything all together. There's some that don't want to do anything, and there's some of us that want to do basically what the board voted to do here. And in work session, I explained that personally, I thought that's where we would wind up, was at that 5% figure. But I certainly don't feel that way now. My best guess is that we're going to do good to get that increased to 2.5. With the step plan that's incorporated, people would get more than a 2.5% increase. Most people, some would get not as much as others, depending on where they were and where they land in that step thing. I think, Mayor, you might want to speak to this, because I know you'd looked at some of the numbers, I believe, and some people would get as much as possibly 12% or something to that effect, just to get them back up to where they need to be or should be to begin with. But my recommendation that I made at work session was to try to, whatever the county decides for the rest of the departments, just mirror it. And I think that would take that issue off the table. And the bonuses, I think they're sensitive to needing to give bonuses. We just gave a $3,000 bonus. The sticking point is doing for one and not doing for another. And I know there is the argument that this is not taxpayers' money, and I certainly understand that argument. But there's still public monies, and it's still a department. And they feel like that they want to try to treat all departments the same. And that was what was voiced to me. That was what was voiced, my remembrances. And I'm sure, I know some of y'all have watched, those tapes of those deliberations, those nights. And, but that's my best recollection. That's my best gleaning of what the reason stated. It was, I believe, an 8-4 vote, if I remember, or 8-3. It was not even a substantially close vote on it. You know, it was pretty overwhelming, and that in itself causes me pause. In that committee, as large a committee as it is, I can't help but feel like that would transfer over to a vote of the full commission at about the same ratio. It may not. I don't have a crystal ball. God knows that. They throw me a curve every time I sit in that chair up there. But that's kind of the two issues. That was really, I think, Mayor, was there any other issue that was really voiced? Help me here, please.
No, it was the bonus, the raise amount. And just the only other question was about the 19 million, but that's statement of assets. So we addressed that, I think Monday night, and got that addressed. So that would only leave the raises and the bonus.
And if I can interrupt you for a second, Mr. McFarland. So what with the $19 million statement, what I found out was that they were also talking about, there was a difference in the format for the budget and the presentation to the county commission. So that they have a fluid flow of looking from department to department, and not to give us more work or more things to look at in the future, I recommended that Miss Amy Thomas send me a template of what they all see. And you have two samples in front of you, and it's called Statement K on the top right-hand side. And they're exactly the same except for the back. And the county, they actually, Hartsville-Trousdale County, they actually flow on a cash fund balance. And so when they see that our fund balance is $19 million, their interpretation was, oh, we had $19 million. For some people, I've been told they thought that we had $19 million in the bank, not knowing that that was the true hard assets that were owned by this department. I think I've told you that before, but I wanted to give you a visualization of what they actually were looking at versus what the reality is. There is a discrepancy based on the types of, and I kind of spoke about this a little bit the other night in the work session about the formats and how the accounts run. Like Ms. Thomas has to do, she does bookkeeping totally different than what the water department does. But to expedite their process and them approving the budget for this department, I think it would be in the best interest if this is what we forward to them. So this is a document that I asked to be created. And I'm not sure which truly is the right one that needs to be turned into them every single time we turn in our budget. If it needs to be the $19 million or if it needs to be the 5.2. But Ms. Thomas is comfortable with us presenting the 5.2 based on the cash. I just want to make sure that we're transparent and we're not ever perceived to not be transparent. So I'll be working on that just a little bit more. You will see that there is a difference in this, that I stepped ahead without your permission, and I pulled the bonus payments off of this budget. The word bonus payments takes them down to a zero balance for bonuses out of this department's payroll, so that we could be presenting payroll to staff in the same format that the other departments do. But I wanted to let you know, this is where they were coming from a couple individuals that have been so courteous, that have returned my calls. And I appreciate those county commissioners that did that. But there's a lot of information they couldn't decipher through. So that was a lot of where they went. So so I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Jewell, so the Statement K with this format, I mean, do you see a problem? I mean, this is what I think they were asking for. Is this what they were asking? This is my interpretation of what they asked for.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, so we will still know details, this board will, because we do that with Tommy. That's what we do. That's what we're here for. But we'll stay in accord with their format for presentations for the future. And then Mr. Tommy, I'll let you take it back over.
And in this budget here, it has the bonuses removed. The only thing that I did there was we did convert them to a salary on each employee, though. That's the only thing different about it, but they're gone. Even the ones that y'all give me are gone. They'll be completely out of this budget from now on. If that's the board's will, you know, that's what this budget represents before y'all. That's totally up to y'all. Like I say, we did convert it to the salary for each individual person.
And I want you all, it's hard to guess where we're gonna go in a meeting. So I don't know so I hated to not hand anybody anything different, but this is one thing that, I'll repeat and, I'll say this, if, you know, we'll follow what you all want to do. But this was one of the options that I requested, so. And a format. And now we're up for discussion.
I will say, having the format the same as to what they're looking at with everything else will cut down a lot of the questions. And I do think it was confusing. They're not used to seeing assets shown as a balance on a balance sheet. It needs to be the budget. It needs to be the revenues, expected revenues, expected expenditures. It's not a balance sheet. It shouldn't be presented as a balance sheet. It's the budget as far as what your projected revenues are going to be, what your expenditures are going to be. And I think this absolutely addresses that. Sorry for the confusion on it, but when it's a different format that you're used to looking at, it does cause confusion. And I don't think we weren't necessarily insisting that happened, but I think it will go a long way to making it a little more understandable for a lot of the commissioners. So thank you for doing that.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Thank you. And I must apologize to Miss Mary now because it's going to give her a lot more work to do. So she's going to have to make an extra sheet. And I'm going to ask where you all stand on what you would like to do with the budget that was presented that was rejected. Because we need to respond back to the budget and finance on where we are with that.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Please do.
Tommy, when you were hired, what was the deal that you were hired under?
Well, I'd asked for a certain amount of money and a compromise was that I take 5,000 less and they give me that. And I can understand their point of view. We didn't know each other and they wanted to make sure I could do the job, I guess you might say. So they made a deal where I would get up to a $5,000 bonus if I met certain requirements that year. And every year I got it every year. And we've always, I think you can look around town and look at the stuff we've done. We've made a lot of improvements in town and trying to keep doing so. But that was the deal I made with the original board, because there's no original board on here anymore. Mr. Moreland was the last one that was on here. But that was the deal made, and that was a compromise in my hiring. But that's how that come about.
My suggestion on that, to try to keep his salary and compensation at where it's at, is to roll that 5,000 that was bonus to him just into his salary. Just increase his salary by that amount. That's not affecting what he's getting paid. It's just it's affecting the way it shows on the paper. And that would be and I'm not making that as a motion, that's just strictly a suggestion, and if somebody has other ideas, I'd be glad to hear them. I certainly don't want to, in any way cut his compensation or in any way, jeopardize him being with us. He's a valuable, valuable asset. I don't know where we'd be without him. But it just is, there again, the appearance of someone getting something that others are not. And if you just remove that and the money's the same, he's met all those criteria that were laid out before. And I think he explained it, my understanding of it, and I've talked to several of the original board members about it. And that was basically what my understanding of it was, it was a compromise to get him what he needed and to make sure that they were going to see some progress. And absolutely that progress has been met. So I think we should just roll that amount into his salary, be my suggestion.
I wholeheartedly agree. But also a different perspective of that is asking him to work with a carrot dangled. Not saying that was the intention, but that's the optics of it. And he's human like anybody else. If you give me a $5,000 bonus one year, I'm going to expect it. So to alleviate the commission's concerns, I would very much like to see just make the salary permanent. And then as far as bonuses for the other employees, I don't have a problem with it. I get where the commissioners are coming from. I don't necessarily agree with them. Enough intelligent people in this room, I think we can come up with a different plan for them. But I'm gonna die on the hill of a 5% raise for all the county employees. I feel like anything less than that is an insult. I'm under the understanding that at a 5% raise countywide, there's no tax increase. I don't know. The name of the game is retention, because there is no recruiting.
And to respond to your question, which were wonderful, the statement K represents that format where they are rolled over.
Would the board be comfortable with rolling his 5,000 into his salary? Anybody have any objections to that? I'll certainly make a motion to that effect. Mayor, did you have anything? I know that I don't believe that we can diminish his salary. You know, I don't think we can legally do that. I think we have to keep it if what it's been. I absolutely think we should, but I think also maybe there is some obligation, legal obligation to try to honor that, since it was a contractual obligation at that amount, is my thinking there. I'm not a lawyer, not the son of an attorney. So I just, am I thinking along the right lines on this, Mayor? Do you have anything to interject on this?
I would personally like something in writing from Tommy saying he's going to accept it rolled in as salaried and not be a bonus going forward, because that is kind of changing the original agreement. And I like it in writing. That way there's no question going forward that we offered it, he accepted it.
Tommy, would you have any problem with it going that direction? Okay. Like I say, I would make the motion to increase his salary by that much. And not do the bonus unless we see that we can do bonuses for everyone. And a new agreement with him, a new contract per se, I guess you'd say, be drawn up between the mayor and Tom, subject to the approval of the board. Is that
I'll
too
second it.
convoluted?
I have a
Did you
first-
get all that? Is that too convoluted,
No, it's,
Dale?
or are you talking about her?
Contingency of his,
Starting with the new budget year, July 1st.
good call. So White Joel with the first, Mark White with the second. Any more discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we need to, so what we will most likely need to do is, based on the format that we have, is there, actually, before I ask that question that I can't get out, any more questions on the budget with this?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The way the labor costs are built in here, is that maintaining that 5% increase, the step up plus the 5%?
Where, are we looking at statement K? Where are we looking at?
Yes, statement K, you got your labor cost here, you got supervisor, director, clerical personnel on down through other salaries and wages. So I guess that'd be, your director, your office staff, the employees for the water department. Is these numbers still maintaining that step increase and 5% cost of living adjustment above that?
Yeah, they still reflect it in general, but the sheet that I give y'all that breaks down the divisions of percentages, it shows the actual outcome of your expenses versus what that would change, which we just changed those percentages. It's the one that shows the different range of percentages. And it shows the removal of those bonuses, and then it's got the 5 is where y'all was at last time, and the 2.5 is right beside it. That's where y'all were talking about on the county side.
So the figures on statement K affect
It's,
2.5 or 5?
they're at the 5, but
5 or 5.5?
they're 5.
Okay, because this sheet you have says 5.5, 7.5, 6.5, 5.5, 4.5, 3.5, 2.5. And, oh, I
And then
see
5.
5 at the very right. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and does the figure for 105, 55,900 or 105 supervisor directory, that $89,108 figure there in the proposed column, is that with or without the $5,000? Is it included in that amount?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It was converted into this amount
Okay.
because we did away with them.
Just wanted, it looked like it was, I just wanted to.
This
Thank you.
statement K did not change the numbers that this board previously approved. The numbers are the exact same as the final dollar. It's just we removed the language of the word bonus or the formula of payment for the staff.
Your bottom line goes from 1.89 at 5%, Mayor. And it goes to 2.58 if y'all go to 2.5.
Okay, I don't have that in my paper.
There you go. You can take it. I apologize, Mayor. I gotta learn to quit printing stuff when the ladies are trying to close their books because they print all their stuff at the same time, and I sometimes lose my data.
And then I walked away with the whole stack of your papers too today. That didn't help any.
To further confuse this, what we have looked at, what the mayor presented as a budget had the step increases and carrying everyone automatically one step of increase. Because when we put the data together, it was a year ago to get it back to more current figures. And then presented on top of that, and that in itself had a built-in 2.5% roughly across the board. Some people would be, a few people would be less, but most people would be even more than that. Then we proposed for a cost of wages or cost of living, an additional 2.5%. One of the commissioners raised objections to that, wanted it taken back to 0. And we vote was to do that, which meant that every department, every payroll that was presented, we had to change the numbers a lot of times there on the spot. And it really caused these hearings to drag out and a lot of confusion. There was a motion to try to bring it back up to the 2.5, which was not in order because that part of the budget was not publicized as what we were doing in that meeting. So we could not take that up. We had intended to take that up last night and simply ran out of time because we got in a big controversy with basically the education department, school board, because we had approved their budget and they came back with a whole different revised budget. And that made us run out of time. So the reason I'm saying I think we will be above the 0% and more than likely back to the 2.5% is because it was not going to result in any property tax rate increase to be able to do that. We found money within the budget to be able to do that increase because of growth funds and some other magic manipulation. And I feel like that's at least where they would go. I'm kind of like Mr. White. I'm going to be in there crusading for it to be more than that 2.5%. And I know that there are some other commissioners that will be as well. So I feel like we'll be at the very least at the 2.5, possibly at the 5. But that's still to be decided. So I hope that information is helpful on you deciding what direction to go with. That being said, probably what we need to do as the water board is present 2 budgets. One that reflects the 2.5% and one that reflects the 5%. So that it's prepared to swing either way if the will of the board is to go with what the will of the commission is. And pretty much we have those numbers. It's not going to be that hard to determine those numbers to kind of handle it that way. But just a thought. Mayor, do you have anything else to interject on that, or did I steal your thunder?
No, as you said, when we built the county budget, we did it because we didn't really have any direction from budget and finance. We built it on a step increase with 2.5. When we did the budget for the water department, everything I was hearing is our numbers are year old. We got to get everybody up. We got to do this. We got to do that. And that's why I agreed to the 5% because it sounded to me like that's where we were going on the county side. And then that train went off the track. So I think, I personally, again, I hate to throw it out there and see what I think is going to happen because it didn't happen last time, but I think probably when we're going to settle on probably the step increase in the 2.5% on the county side. I know there's going to be some pushing to go 5%. But again, that's going to be up to the county commission. So I'm of two minds for one, of it. I read, like I said, I thought we were gonna do 5% last time. We didn't. I really can't just make the way I'm gonna vote it, I can't do more than a step increase of 2.5%, because that's what I'm trying to get for the county employees, because for, just like everything else, some of them, it's a bridge too far to go 5%. Some of them say it's not enough. And then, but I think from what I'm hearing, as far as employees and department heads and all this stuff, if we can at least get the step increase in 2.5%, I think we'll be pretty satisfied with that right now. And that's kind of how I feel about it. And I know members of the water board have a different feeling, and I can't say I disagree. We've seen 8% inflation, gas prices jumping so high, food prices outrageous. And that's why we did the wage study, try to get us back to where we should be. But at the same time, I got balancing act of the people we're going to tax also have those issues, and some of them are not getting the increases like that. So again, I know I didn't provide any answer there, but that's just kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
Just to be clear, I'm not trying to forget about the taxpayer, the property taxpayer. And I know a lot of people are struggling with the property tax. My argument for a larger raise for county employees is not really based on our current tax base, but this pie in the sky, all these houses being built, people moving in. I mean, unless I'm just dumb as a fence post, our tax base is going to grow. I do know our valuations went up, which should bring up some dollars also. So I don't want it to seem like I just don't care about the elderly lady who's struggling to pay her property tax. That's not my point. I know that we have more money coming. It may not be here yet, but it is coming, or the possibility that it's going to be here. So I'm to understand, Mr. Jewell, then, that one commissioner wanted this all derailed and to go to zero.
It started that way and he was very persuasive and they went along with it. I voted no.
And I appreciate that. I do. I'm good with the two budget scenario that you suggested. I know this has got to move along. The county's got to get the budget done. I don't want to cause the mayor any more headache than has already been. I said it last night. I just feel like it's very short-sighted on the commission's part to only view these pay increases through the lens of a cost. It's not just a cost. It is an investment in your people. It is also good for morale. I can attest to the fact that happy employees are more productive employees. And again, as stated before, most of them live here in Trowser County. The bulk of the money is going to be put right back into our local economy. But again, the two budget scenario, if everybody else is okay with it, I think it's a good idea. At this point, I just want to get them something. As far as the step increases, I know everybody keeps harping about that. Just from my point of view, and I could be completely wrong, the wage study just told us how far behind we were. Been behind for several years, I'm going to wager. So simple math, we were saving money for several years.
Well, I will say Mr. White was very eloquent last night. And no, seriously, you were, and Miss Bay was, and I appreciate your statements. I think people listen, and I took them to heart. I think it will make a difference. I do believe it will make a difference. It's trying times. The runaway inflation, not knowing what's going to happen with the economy, whether it's going to stay, whether it's going to take a nosedive. And it's an election year. All those things play into this, and I have made the statement on more than one occasion that I am not going to be the one that balances the county books on the back of the employees. I have always tried to stand up for the employees and argue for their benefit, because to me, they are the face of our government. They are the interaction with the public. And if you've got someone disgruntled and grumpy and whatever reason, that doesn't put a good foot forward. And that's what we're judged on. And you had said in times past that if they're not doing a good job, get rid of them. Boy, I stand by that. I stand by that. But if they're doing a good job, and I feel like most of them are doing a yeoman's job, they're doing an exceptional job. And that we need to try to take care of them. It's counterproductive. It's counterproductive in so many ways. And I've said this from my position as chairman on more than one occasion. I tried to speak against what the direction was going because I knew how much confusion and how much work needlessly. If we got down to the end and we didn't have enough money, then let's go back and change it. But to change it back and all this kind of stuff was so counterproductive. But I am sorry that we're in this position. I didn't anticipate it, but this is where we find ourselves. And that's the only solution I have at this point to try to move us forward, move both bodies forward. Because I have a responsibility here and I have a responsibility there. I don't weigh one more than the other. I assure you, I don't. And like I asked in work session, don't kill the messenger for the message. And I thank you for being sensitive to that and making me feel like you did understand where I was coming from on all of this. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you on that. But I've said enough. I'll hush.
I don't want to jump in front of anybody else. If anybody else has anything else. Mayor, I have a couple questions. So this budget, I understand you state that the budget and finance did not have input with the county's budget. Is that accurate?
No, under the charter, I have to gather the budget proposals from the different departments and elected officials and then submit them to the county commission. But as it went through my office, we had budgeted in using the wage study we did. We adjusted everybody up one step from what they had suggested in the wage study, which was done and submitted in July of last year. So we adjusted everybody up. That's about a 2.35% between steps. And then we added a 2.5% cost of living adjustment. And as Mr. Jewell said, if you went down through there and looked at it position by position, there were some positions that got 17% increase overall. Well, there's some that got less because they were already paid close to what the market rate was based on their experience and whatnot. So some are going to get more, some are going to get less. But as far as what we did budget wise on the pay scale was step them up one and then add a 2.5% cost of living because we had to budget on something. And we hadn't had direction at that point from the budget and finance. They hadn't decided what they want to do. So we submitted that and then that got taken out kind of the first night and that's led us to where we are now.
And so what I understand you're saying is that each department head manages its own budget to determine what it's going to take for it to take care of business for the next year. And they present that to you. Is that accurate?
Yes, they present it to me and then I'll sit down and go through it with them. If it's equipment or anything, I just ask basic questions about, do we need this, these kind of things. Most of the time it's because it's breaking down or it's reached the end of its useful life or something like that, or it's gotten to the point where the maintenance is more than the equipment's worth. And so we'll look at replacing it and then surplusing it, selling it off. But I just ask those kind of questions. And then if they got labor increase, sometimes if it's, we've had a couple that they actually got a promotion. So their job title actually changed and those kind of things. And just ask that and go through it. And then we agree on something. And then that's ultimately, we piece it all together, department by department and elected offices. And then that's what we submit to the county commission.
Thank you.
Along with a projection of revenue.
And so when you speak, we built the budget, you speak, who is this group, may I ask?
It would be myself and Amy and then working with the department heads. I mean, we get their input on it. We don't, There is a couple of departments, I did take some things out, but I told them directly and we worked with them on it.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
that, when I say we, I mean us as a collective got the budget together and then submitted it.
I just didn't know if there were budgets working against each other or they were actually being collected by one individual or one team. And so from what I understand, it's you and Ms. Thomas both are collecting the data and building it together. Is that correct?
Yeah, Amy builds the budget worksheets that are sent out to each department. She forecasts what their current spending is going to be based on what we've seen so far this fiscal year, and also shows them what they had budgeted last year. And then they'll go through it and fill out the different expenditure line items. And if it's a new item, they'll say what it is, here's the justification for it. And then we go back, get it all, she gets it all together, submits it, her and I look at it, then we sit down with the department heads or elected officials and then go through it. And then whatever comes out of that process, that's what we put together along with our revenue projections on all the different line items we get as far as revenue. See what our revenue and expenditures are, say what the fund balance, we project fund balance is going to be at the end of the current fiscal year, and then what we project it'll be under the next proposed budget. And then that's what we submit to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Ms. Thomas, and every department head for putting this together. So, Mr. Tommy, thank you for building the budget for, and I must give Ms. Mary Dales her some credit because I know she's collecting some stuff too.
Sure.
So we have conversation for two budgets to be presented. A request for two budgets. One was made at 2.5 and 5%. We have no confirmation what the county commission is. We have no locked in confirmation what the county commission is going to do, because the last time we assumed it got us where we are. So what would this body like to make in the form of a motion to present in a budget to the county commission?
Madam Chair, given that we are reaching the deadline, we need to have a budget passed by June 30th. I know it's unusual, but I will go with Mr. Jewell's observation of, I would say if we could submit one budget, given the step increase in 2.5%, and then one alternate with the step increase in the 5%, which is kind of what we've already got currently, I would suggest that we submit both of those. So I'll make a motion to do that.
I second that.
So I have a first on the floor for Stephen Chambers with a, and what were the two rates, sir?
That would be the step increase under the wage scale. And then one at 2.5% COLA. And the other one would also be the step increase and the 5% COLA, which is what our current budget was built on. So there would only be, the alternate would be the step increase and 2.5%.
Do we need to add this motion based on to this motion based on the motion we made before earlier this evening about the pay? Or are we comfortable with the pay already being moved over from the bonuses to the standard pay?
Well, that would need to be reflected in it, certainly, I think that would
Okay.
need to be reflected.
I just want to make
in
that
it.
point out.
Yes.
Is that,
I was going to bring that
I
up.
don't want to
that
leave that,
would
I don't want to
affect
leave that out if that was intended to remain in there.
That would change that number on Tommy a little bit, but, and taking the other out as well. But I think it needs to reflect that because you've already voted to do that.
Well, then I got a question. How does that, now that takes us off our pay scale, which is what we specifically, the county commission has adopted it. So it takes us off our pay scale. Do we adjust our pay scale for one department or?
How does it take it off? Was their bonus affected in that?
No, but
Or
you
you're
just raised
saying
the
on Tommy's salary, it takes it off the pay scale?
Well, it would take him off because it did set it up as a certain rate going forward. I just don't know how you would adjust it. If you're adding that onto their regular pay, well, that steps them up $450 annually. So I don't know what step that would put them on under what your scale is going to be. See, the scale is built to put in what kind of basically a longevity increases. So it's 2.35% every year if you got that and you stepped up 2.35%. Well, let's say it was $200 difference between one step to the other. And if you just boost them up 450, then where does that put them on that? I guess I just don't know if you're doing the 450 or the 3,000, 5,000 for Tommy. How do you reflect that? Because now everything else has been based on the step increase and the 2.5 or the 5%. Well, now you've kind of gone away from that. So how do you quantify that?
And I want to make sure this board votes on what they intend to vote on.
But the bonus was not reflected in their pay scale. It was a separate line item. So if you take the bonus out, other than Tommy, where it was added back in, it wasn't added back in for everybody except Tommy. So it shouldn't affect that at all. It's just going to affect the overall bottom line, but it shouldn't affect the individual steps and the people in those positions.
It'll still affect Tommy.
Yes. Yes, it would affect Tommy. But all you're doing is you're taking his existing pay, and instead of it being line itemed in bonus and salary, it's all showing reflected in salary. Because the pay scale that was based on his W-2 wages, was it not?
Yeah, it didn't take into account the bonus, and that's what I'm saying. I guess however, whenever we look at it, if you do it operationally, if you're giving him 5,000 now, well, and let's say, okay, the bonus was not reflected in that, and he was getting, I think, roughly about a $5,000 increase under the wage study. So is this that 5%, that $5,000? Is it an additional 5,000? Because I'm looking at what we did originally, which this is what we're going to do, because trust me, the wage scale was pretty high for this position. Amended budget for the current fiscal year was 76,017. Is going to 89,108. So I just, again, this is just throwing it out there, and I know this is kind of real down in the weeds technical. But as far as, I guess you just look at it and say, okay, this is what his salary is, and put him on wherever that would line up on the scale, and then he can increase beyond that if that's what we're doing. Or are we going to review him differently every year?
I think you would just look at whatever it was at 2.5 and 5, and whatever that figure is, add 5 to it. Is there any reason that wouldn't work?
Other than placing him on the scale.
I'm dense. I don't understand. So that is the problem. So what is your solution?
The only thing I can think of is let's look at that example. If he was pay grade 12 and now he was on step 5 and you boost him up $5,000, maybe now he's on step 12. It's the only thing I can figure. But
Okay.
either way, my motion still stands unless somebody wants to argue against anything like that. As far as I know, it hasn't been seconded, but that is my motion.
So I just wanted to make sure that we have a motion, what the motion is clear for, and the motion is clear for the wage study with 2.5% and wage study with 5%. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes, and I believe that's kind of what some of this was already built on as far as the other employees, if you minus Tommy, unless I'm correct.
And I want you to know that I presented the statement K as not that. So just so there's clarity and to know where I'm coming from, and to make sure that the presentation that I gave them back the exact same numbers that were presented to county, and everyone's bonuses were removed out of the column as a bonus and put into their pay. And so now we have a first and a from Stephen Chambers, and we have a second from Mark White. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Nay. Motion carries. Our next thing on our agenda comes to continue Mr. McFarland's report if you have anything else.
No, I don't, nothing but a statement. As a supervisor, I think the wage study is one of the best things the county's come up with. I think to not move it forward every year is, and that kind of don't sound like that's where that's headed to me, what I hear at these budget meetings. And, but I can't speak for every department head, but I would assume that would help them greatly to retain their employees and have something an employee could look forward to know that they might have the possibility of just, because when I come here, I'll just tell you, we've been fortunate every year. The water board we've been blessed to get a raise every year. But I'll have to say under the other departments, that ain't been true. But at least gives these other department heads and employees in this county a hope to get something. And I hope they don't throw that out and just do it this year and let it be. And I hope that don't happen. I think it's a good thing for the people that work in this county. It's good. I appreciate it for the water department because now maybe we can all be on a level playing field and have everybody get something for their efforts as a worker here and be recognized. But that was just something I wanted to make a statement. I can't speak for all department heads, but I do think it's a very good thing that y'all have done. The study's one of the best things I think y'all have done since I've been here, as far as helping your employees. And I hope that's the same opinion of other department heads, I hope.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comments. We have two guests in the audience, and would you like to come forward? No, okay. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your attendance. Anything from our board members?
I'd just like to say I'm proud of the work that the water department does. Been around here a long time, and even when I wasn't on the water board, you still notice things going on, and it just, the amount of work that you see going on, it's impressive and it's appreciated.
If I could, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say thank you to you and Mark on last night. I was late to the meeting, but I did go back and view it online on Facebook. And thank you all for supporting the employees of the water department and standing up for them in an effort to retain them as employees. So thank you to both you and to Mark.
Thank you. He did do a great job, even though he doesn't want to take credit. So.
Only thing I'm proud of is I didn't cuss.
I was so proud of him. I wanted to hug him, but I knew he wouldn't appreciate it. But I'd like to say thank you. And I would ask you to please, I would covet your prayers if you're a praying person. For my wife, we just found out her brain tumor is progressing very fastly, and we're trying to get in line to start radiation therapy on that. Our granddaughter, Scarlett, that is a year and a half old, has been battling cancer as well. And she had a scan today, and they seemed to indicate that things were kind of holding. So that was our good news. So we've had good news, bad news this week, but appreciate y'all's patience with me. I've had a lot of other things on my mind other than some of the business things, but I appreciate your prayers and for putting up with me.
Thank you. I want to thank every one of you for being on this board and all that you do and all that you give. This community is blessed to have each and every one of you, and I am a praying person. So, Mr. Jewell, your family and every staff member that is a part of the Hartsville-Trousdale County employment will be in my prayers for this walk, for this budget, and all those that are making this decision. And if I could have anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Go ahead.
I second that motion.
Adjourned. Have a great evening. Thank you.